And that, of course, leads me to Michelle Obama. You're back, and she's given us a whole new realm of comments. Glenn, we saved them just for you because she's still...
I told your staff I only started watching this podcast religiously because of the times I've been on your show and you've talked about it by yourself or with me. So I'm very ready to talk Michelle Obama.
Oh, good. She's still just as bitter as ever. There's such a great new spin of complaints here. Here's one from her most recent episode, which still on YouTube, she's got 200,000 subscribers. It's really amazing that now she's been doing this for how many episodes? She's been literally on every podcast of the left wing promoting it. And that's still all she's managed to get. Here she is interviewing Dr. Sharon Malone, perhaps better known as former Attorney General Eric Holder's wife. And therein lies the problem, as these two ladies married to two very famous men are pissed that they are not the alpha in terms of popularity and recognition in their marriages. Listen to this, SOT 15.
Sharon's husband happens to be former Attorney General Eric Holder. He's a non-factor. He is not a non-factor. He's a non-factor in our relationship.
Story. Okay,
in our story.
Let's contextualize that,
although they put us together because we were both reluctant spouses attending one of these huge dinners. And where were they? Was Barack a U.S. senator at the time?
Yes, he was a senator because you were still living in Chicago. Mm-hmm. And Eric was in private practice. So it was the very early days. And, she came to D.C. and you didn't come to D.C. much in those days.
No, ma'am.
And they sit us at a table and we were seated just about like this. She was across the table from me.
Okay.
And you know how there are things going on around us, and I would just look over at her and it was...
Well, and the things were, there was a line of people waiting to shake hands with our respective husbands, people reaching over our heads and spilling water on us, trying to get to these two, illustrious men.
And that's annoying because she's supposed to be the star, Glenn. Michelle Obama. This dovetails perfectly with so many other comments she's made about how she is... what about me? What about me? What did those 8 years in the White House do to my soul? And why isn't anyone asking? They shouldn't have to be told to ask about how I'm doing. Go ahead.
Every single time you showed a clip on this show, including when I wasn't here, but I was watching, but also every time I've been here, every single time, I'm not exaggerating, Michelle Obama is making clear that everything that she had to do to support her husband's career was something that was completely against her will, that it was some sort of psychological damage imposed on her for having to do it. She has resentment and bitterness, I went to this dinner, but against my will because I had to. That's the first thing. I mean, how much anger and resentment does she have toward her husband for having had his own political career that, as we've talked about before, made Michelle Obama one of the richest, most influential, most famous, and most powerful people on the planet. And yet she talks as if that trajectory that he took her on was something that, turned her into some kind of horrible victim that we ought to feel sorry for. On top of that, these podcasts where you what she's doing, which is basically just going around and chit-chatting about her life and the things she thinks is interesting in her life, or the thoughts she has in the middle of the night. It's such an act of extreme narcissism to go around talking constantly about the things that are being done to you that you think are unfair, when in the entire 8 billion people on the planet, you are basically in the top 0.00001% of the people who are the most privileged by every reasonable metric. I'm not saying people don't go through bad times if they're very rich or very famous. Of course they do. But don't you have any humility at all, any sensibility at all, that most people don't want to hear from you about how difficult your life is, given that you live in this lavish wealth and fame and got to be in the White House for all those years, but she's angry about it and thinks that it's worthy of all of our attention. To hear her resentment, I can't understand the mindset that produces that belief.
I know. How do you not stop, especially when your husband was commander-in-chief for 8 years, and think there will be people who hear this clip who have no arms and legs thanks to these wars that we fought in Iraq and Afghanistan. I mean, I know some of them, and they will drag themselves out to run the Tunnel to Towers race and other races to raise money for other suffering veterans and firefighters who got hurt on 9/11 and so on, and their families are surviving, who have actual problems that were basically brought on them by the government. And no one, not even people who aren't anywhere near as catastrophically injured as those guys, but especially guys like that, don't want to hear about how someone had to reach past her to shake Barack Obama's hand. She has zero perspective for what actual problems are, Glenn.
Or just people suffering from like terminal illness, or people who can't get food and healthcare for, on and on and on, like all of the injustices and horrors and wars in the world. And this is what I'm saying. Like, I'm not saying I haven't encountered difficulties in my life, but in general, I feel like my life is very blessed. I feel like I have done a lot of things. I've gotten a lot of things that other people haven't gotten. And so I would never go around and talk publicly about, hey, gather around. I want you to hear why I feel so aggrieved. You never do either. Like, I'm not saying there aren't times that you're angry, but you don't go publicly and talk about it, because in comparison to pretty much everybody else in the world, it's so trivial, and to demand that people pay attention. But this is the other thing. This whole idea that she has a marriage, I know you are married to someone who has a different career than you. I was married to my husband, who was a politician. I obviously supported his political career because, we were married and I loved him, and that's what you do in marriage. And of course, I had to go to events sometimes that I didn't really want to go to, that weren't particularly interesting, like political rallies or whatever. I would never imagine going around and publicly saying, because of him, I had to go to all these different horrible, miserable events, and he was the star because he was the candidate and people climbed, or vice versa, all the things he had to do. Like, the conception she has of marriage is so jaded and so ugly and negative. And I don't know where that comes from.
Point scoring, it's all point scoring. It's like when I go to like one of Doug's book signings and people want to talk to Doug because he's the star at those book signings. I love it. I love it for him. I'm thrilled to have them reach past me to shake Doug's hand because I love him and I'm rooting for him. Everything is like a point against him and a deficit that she's suffered for which he has to make up later. All right. So more aggrievement in the following soundbite, and this is another theme with her, how hard it is to be Michelle, how hard it is to be a woman. Here she is in SOT 16.
Who, drink excessive amounts of alcohol, that might be a factor. But the thing that's different about women than it is about men, with men, you make a new set of sperm every 69 days. You get a new batch, right?
Right.
We are born with all we're ever going to have. And that's it. We
always getting the short end of something.
I'm telling you, isn't it? We get all we have.
Sperm after sperm after sperm.
Well, we can jack ours up with behavior too, right?
No, see, you use
smoking
that word, jack up. It's like, be careful there. I was like, where are you going with that, dude?
I was trying not to curse. I should have cursed. It would have been better.
We might have to bleep that out.
No, but seriously, it's...
Brother Craig, you need to get out of there. You needed to go launch your own show. Glenn.
Poor Brother Craig.
We need to send
Brother Craig.
We need a parachute in there to rescue Brother Craig.
I mean, he has to walk on pins and needles because the minute he does anything other than just like sort of say amen in response to everything she says, she gets super hostile.
Yes, she does. She's always correcting him.
Oh, yeah. If he steps out of line, she's like, no. And then she talks over him and she explains why he's so wrong. And then he eventually apologizes. It's a really uncomfortable dynamic. But also what is that? Women always get the short end of the stick because of their biology. And what does that even
women
mean?
Live 6 or 7 years longer than men?
Longer than men. Longer than men.
It's pretty good.
And have for a long time. Yeah, I think that's a pretty good... mark of positivity on the side of women, and women get to do a lot of things that men don't do.
Women get to carry a baby. Yeah, exactly. To be a mother to a baby and breastfeed. But no, I bet she would frame that as some sort of a negative. Here she is. I'll give you another one. Well, I'll just let you watch it. SOT 17.
There is at least some, again, anecdotal data that says that older sperm, more autism. We should tell some people, maybe it's the old sperm, maybe it's not the vaccine that's causing the autism. Why don't you look at that?
They'll never let that secret out.
Good luck with that one.
That may be the key behind all the defunding everything. It's just like, let's just blow it up. And then the old
we can't let them find this stuff out.
Old men can keep marrying 20-year-olds.
Exactly.
It's like, I'll give you the baby you want.
What? What is this? This is just some grievance fest again with two of the most privileged women on earth who are really bitter against men because now we're trying to say it's old male sperm that causes autism. I don't even understand it, but it's typical leftist women talk.
It's like it's the men's fault. Like the reason why people are interested in what causes autism is because there's been a gigantic explosion in the rates of autism over the past, 20 to 30 years or 40 years. So people are interested, like, why has that happened? Was there not old people's sperm like prior to 40 years ago? Like if old men's sperm causes autism, why wasn't that happening 40 years ago? It makes no sense. But everything she says has like no side point. There's never any like interest in any issue. It's all a proxy for her to depict herself as somehow put upon. And aside from the fact that I don't understand how anybody would ever want to listen to that, I also don't understand, honestly, I really don't, how somebody has the life she has and really is convinced that the whole world is unfair to her, that she's uniquely suffering and that everybody wants to sit around and hear it. There's something very dark in her psyche that is causing her to use this podcast to like disparage her marriage and to talk about how unfair the world has been to her. I don't know. I just,
and her kids. She's disparaged her kids.
Has she?
Yeah, she's gone on. She hasn't said like, I hate Malia and Sasha, but she's like, they're extremely hard. And like they come and, your life basically gets ruined. I mean, she doesn't talk about them, and she's like, they're launched, she doesn't talk about them in the way of like, they're my everything, like you change as a woman and as a mother and you profoundly connect with your child upon birth. And she talks about it like it was all yet another fucking thing she had to do for Barack. And even here, this isn't about her children per se, but most women, when they talk about the glorious ability to be a woman, the glorious fact of being a woman, will mention, as you and I both just did, as one of the first things that makes women truly special, the ability to carry and give birth to a child. It's a gift from God. It's such an extraordinary superpower. Here she is on that.
A lot of male politicians, a lot of male religious leaders think about the issue of choice as if it's just about the fetus, the baby, but women's reproductive health is about our life. It's about this whole complicated reproductive system that does the least of what it does is produce life. It's a very important thing that it does. But you only produce life if the machine that's producing it, if you want to, whittle us down to a machine, if the machine is functioning.
The least of what the reproductive system does.
The least important of what the reproductive is give life, is create life. I mean, where would anybody, that is I maybe want to say there are other things as important, but to rank the production of life and the unbelievably miraculous process where a woman, carries a baby to term and then life is created, like this process that everyone finds beautiful, to say that that's the least important. Who talks like that? Especially somebody who's gone through childbirth. And that's the other thing, I was talking about my kids yesterday with a man who has kids. And like the first thing we immediately said is like, they're teenagers. Of course you have problems, but like, you're like, the best thing I've ever done is become a parent. Like, I love my kids so much. It's changed my life. It's so, who talks about the process of having kids in this way that's like very annoying, very put upon? And like, even if that's what you think, why would you say that publicly about your own kids?
This July, there's a global summit of BRICS nations in Rio de Janeiro. The bloc of emerging potential superpowers, including China, Russia, India, and Iran, are meeting with the goal of displacing the US dollar as the global currency. They're calling this the Rio Reset. As BRICS nations push forward with their plans, some worry global demand for US dollars could decrease, potentially bringing down the value of the dollars in your savings. While this transition will not happen overnight, the Rio Reset could mark a pivotal moment. So learn if diversifying your savings into gold is right for you. Birch Gold Group can help you move your hard-earned savings into a tax-sheltered IRA and precious metals. Claim your free info kit on gold by texting MK to the number 989898. With an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau and tens of thousands of happy customers, let Birch Gold arm you with a free, no-obligation info kit on owning gold before July and the so-called Rio Reset. Text MK to 989898 today. Thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.